ReefDudes is sponsored by Brightwell Aquatics and Bulk Reef Supply. Today we're going to learn about the all-new Mastertronic. What's going on, guys? Devin from ReefDudes. I have on Eric from Focustronic. How are you doing today, Eric?
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be on Dev's show, and I hope I can answer some questions.
Definitely. Now, I am excited because the Mastertronic is finally released. It's finally out shipping pre-orders. I've been following this for a few years now, and this is kind of one of the key amazing things for this hobby because it tests everything. There's a lot of testers out there, but most of them test, some things, but not everything. Where this is going to test, basically everything someone cares about on their tank.
Yeah, the most important elements, we put it.
Yep. So I have been using the Filtertronic, which I've actually had for a few years now, and I love it. I picked up a second used one, so I go on both tanks now. Couldn't live without it now. I absolutely love it. But one thing that I've noticed is because I have an Filtertronic to test my elk for me every 12 hours, it's made me lazier on testing everything else, which is why I'm really excited about the Mastertronic, because it will fill in all those gaps and kind of let me be a little bit more of a lazy reefer, but keep my tank dialed. Everything's on track and shows you all the trends. If you got the Dosetronic or those, you can adjust your dosing based on it. So really excited for this to actually be released.
Great. Because it's kind of like the missing link between the Filtertronic and the with the Dosetronic. Even though we base most of the parameters with alkalinity consumption, but sometimes the calcium or the magnesium will also drift. Depending on the solution. Maybe the solution is not perfect, or the consumption is not 100% 1-to-1 ratio. So if we can kind of do a calcium test or magnesium test every once a week or twice a week, I think we can actually make that even more consistent or more stable. And the big thing about the Mastertronic is not really about calcium or magnesium. It's about the nutrients. I think most experienced reefers, they are more concerned about the nutrients more than the stability of the calcium and magnesium.
Yeah.
And with the Mastertronic, we are able to derive, not only me, but I'm going to give credit to Jonas as well, is that we derive some pretty good scripts or coding to not only to use the test kit, but actually manipulate the test kit so that it gives you absolute value, not only a range.
Yeah,
so you
that's
can
awesome.
Have 0.15 ppm, and we don't use ppm, we use mg per liter. So it can give you an absolute value. So it's not like, it's between 1 and 2 or whatever. So it's give you a precision right there.
Yeah, which is awesome. I know one of my biggest pain points is testing nitrates because it's a pain, and I'm always in the high range. So it's like, it's between 16 and 32. You're like, so what is it, right?
Yeah.
So, which is pretty awesome to have the actual detail on it and be able to look at those trends and know if it's going up or down and deal with it appropriately.
Exactly. So you don't only work with a trend, you work with absolute numbers. So you know what is going up or what is going down. In minute detail, I would say.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. Now nitrates and phosphate is a big one because they're very important, right? I'd say after alkalinity is probably the next two big things that you care about tracking in your reef tank. Like calcium, generally, if your elk's good and you're dosing something, it's going to be reasonable. It doesn't shift. Magnesium, you could probably test that a little less because it kind of is happy until it drifts. Then you got to add a ton to it. But it is good to track it. Like in my scenario, on my water box, I use a calcium reactor. So I hardly ever test magnesium or calcium. I usually test elk, but every once in a while, it's still important to make sure it's not drifting out of range over time.
Yes, exactly. That's important because even for calcium reactor users, when they use Filtertronic, we actually save quite a number of tanks. They run off CO2s or the pump go crazy. And they can pick up, in general, calcium reactors is really good, really stable and stuff like that. But equipments are equipments. Sometimes they just malfunction, right? And you never know. And it's good to have that redundancy.
Exactly. So definitely save tanks, and it saves those lazy reefers to just make that tank extra pristine. I joke about saying lazy reefer, even though I spent endless hours automating the tank and doing all this stuff, but it's fun.
Yeah, perfect.
So
go on, sorry.
Oh, so okay. So how long have you guys actually been working on the Mastertronic for? Because the Alcatronic's been out for a few years now, and I absolutely love it. So I think I have a lot of faith in the Mastertronic's going to be an amazing product. But so have you been working on this just as long as the Alcatronic, or once that was released, was this kind of like the next one in the hopper?
No, actually, we started really developing for Mastertronic. I think I would say about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago. I mean, it doesn't seem that long when you're working on it daily,
Yeah.
but it is. It's almost 2 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and finally we are releasing. I mean, as people might see it if they're following our posts, is that we actually changed the design. Right now, the whole design resembles the Alcatronic.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the little brother. I mean, it's just a cover to cover my stuff. So you
Yep.
you can see the difference. I mean, right here, this is
Mm-hmm.
the little brother Alcatronic, and this is Mastertronic. And originally, we weren't going to do a case like this. We were going
Mm-hmm.
to do a kind of an overall case, and then we just have a door opening. I mean, you just pull out the door, and then you can do maintenance and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
after a while, we feel that we should actually keep the same design. It's such a nice design, so
Yeah,
we
it
should
looks
actually
good.
keep it.
How it actually works. So inside of it, it is using basically like a carousel with all the standard reagent tests, and it'll go through and manually, or sorry, automatically perform those tests that you'd normally do manually, but in greater detail and precision.
All right. Let's go from the outside. So from the Mastertronic, I mean, there's a water in on this
Mm-hmm.
side, and then there's two hoses out on the other side, which is the RO water in. This is
Okay,
to rinse the needles and the chambers, and this is the waste out.
nice.
So again, we have the LCD which shows what you're doing or what the last parameter is or last test. Okay, here's the inside. Right here, we use the same stepper as the Alcatronic or Dosetronic. That is to pull out tank water from the tank. That's the
Mm-hmm.
sample water, and
Nice.
then it will go into this reagent chamber. And within the reagent chamber, there's the sensors and the LEDs to pick up the different colors.
Nice.
And then the next to it would be the RO chamber where the needle will go inside and do all the rinsing.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the carousel, which carries 12 little files, and it's actually very easy to take out, just like that.
Nice.
And then the other one, I just pop it back in. And then there's three pumps. One is to get the RO water in, and one is to get the RO water out. And then
Yep.
the other one is to get the wastewater out from the reaction chamber, which is where we test the where we do the test.
Nice.
And this
One
is
thing.
some. Sorry, go on.
Oh, one thing I noticed, you have a water sensor below the tester chamber too. So like a leak
Yes, correct.
sensor. That's a nice
Oh,
addition.
right here. Yes, that's a leak sensor. And it in any case, I mean, there's water leaking out or overflowing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this whole black part will actually hold the water, and it will funnel down to the leak sensor.
Nice. That's awesome. That's a
So
good add-on.
as soon as the leak sensor detects any water, it will stop the whole machine.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a nice fail-safe in there.
Yep, that's something that we added, and I think it's important because it's actually such a small vial. I mean, it's easy to have overflow if you're not careful or there's some malfunction. So
Yep.
this is important. And one of the things that again I give credit to Jonas is that we added two needles.
Ah, do tell.
Okay, I was going to ask you if you can guess why we have two needles. We
Not a
didn't
clue,
test
but I'm
two things.
curious.
Is that these vials here, they are
Mm-hmm.
actually airtight, and the shorter needle is actually for venting. So the other needle will just actually poke
Yep.
through the membrane,
Just
so
so
that
there's
it
no
allows
vacuum.
the air. Yeah, there's no
Huh.
vacuum.
Oh, very cool.
And this white part, we deliberately made this actually after the whole design was finished. Actually, it was one of the kind of beta
Mm-hmm.
tests that we decided we should add this. It's actually guide the needles so that the needles go more to the center.
Very nice.
So it prevents the needles
Hitting the
hitting
edges.
the edges.
That's clever. I like it.
Because the needles themselves, I mean, I think like all needles, even the medical grade needles, they won't be perfectly straight. I mean, the needle itself is straight,
Mm-hmm.
but then they might not be perfectly straight when they're mounted.
Yeah. In the cap, there may be a slight offset in the plastic.
Exactly.
I guess one other question, as far as like kind of maintenance, what does it look like after so long? Do you want to replace the needles or hoses, or is there any kind of maintenance things to keep up on with it?
Yeah, we do recommend people to replace the needles every maybe 6 weeks or so.
Okay.
I mean, again, this it's just like alkatronic or just like your car. I mean, how often you use it depends on how regular you need to replace stuff. But we would say about 6 weeks.
Okay. Nice.
Every 6 weeks, you should replace the needles and syringes, because the syringes, I mean, the more you use it, I mean the reagents are sometimes acid. It will be not as smooth. It will be kind of how to put it, sticky.
Okay, gotcha. So
Yeah.
preventative, basically keep everything running smoothly, nicely.
Yeah, exactly.
So just for people that don't know, it's new. So we test alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, nitrates, phosphates, and you added an OLI, which is
Yes.
kind of a new parameter, and that's more about kind of the cleanness or the clarity of your water.
Exactly. I mean, first off, you will calibrate the sensor with the RO water. I mean, RO water is supposed to be clean, right?
Clean, yeah.
Yeah, and then you actually compare your tank water with that value, and then if you see a huge difference, I mean, it's time to either replace your carbon or do some water changes. So
Okay,
it's
nice.
actually a free test that we derive.
Bonus. Can't
Yes,
go wrong with
bonus.
that.
It doesn't use any reagents. I mean, that's the plus.
Yep. Awesome. So would it just do that every time it's pulling in the sample for the tank test? So would that be updated with any test or?
No, actually, it's just like another parameter. You set your
Okay.
schedule. You can test
Nice.
that every day or every week,
Yeah.
because we have a weekly schedule.
Perfect. Love it. Now for as you test, so is there any like minimum or maximum test, or you can pick whenever you want it to test?
Okay, that's a good question.
Yep.
Actually, we do require one test per week. So basically,
Okay.
you need to set an automated schedule. You can't like, oh, I set the parameter out, but I don't keep it the schedule. I mean, you can't do that, because otherwise, there's no point of a machine. If you are triggering, if you're triggering every manual test, you just want to do this as a set and forget,
Yeah.
and kind of thing.
No, exactly. Like I'm just trying to think how I would personally set it up when I get one. Like, cause I've been after for a while. I'm thinking I'm going to do like magnesium, calcium probably once a week, and nitrate and phosphates probably every like 3 or 4 days type of thing.
Yeah, that's a good plan. That's a good plan. And you can actually, I mean, if you want, you can actually initially do a kind of a DKH test as well, just to kind of play with it and see how close it matches your alkatronic. I mean, it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, no, this is actually the other thing I was debating too. It's a good spot check too, is to make sure everything lines up. Once a week, because I do have the Alcatronic and test every day, right?
Yeah.
But have it once a week, just double check it. Yep, it's the same range. Everything's happy. If something maybe ran out of reagent or something else happened, it'd be a good way of letting you know, just to make sure everything's happy.
Exactly. But then that will take up 2 vials, so it's a give or take.
Oh, okay. So I guess that's another question. So if I didn't test alkalinity because I have an Alcatronic, could I use those extra vials for other tests?
Yes, I mean, that's the smart thing about Mastertronic, is that you can use more than 1 vial for this for each reagent.
Yeah.
So you can have 3 vials, or you can have, let's put it that way. You have 2 reagents for let's say calcium. You can have all 12 vials split into the two reagents. So you have 6 of each, and then this will just extend the whole refilling time. You fill up to this kind of the neck of the bottle. I mean, that's 20 mil. That's 20 mil. And then the needle will go all the way down to 8 mil.
Okay.
So there's always 8 mil that you can't use, because we don't want to be too close to the stirrer.
Yeah.
But I think 8 mil is probably a good balance between safe and and usage.
Yeah. Nice. Excellent. And then with test kits, I mean, you could once a month or so just top it off and make sure they're all filled, good to go.
Yes, exactly. And actually, this is one thing we do suggest. I mean, when people start using Mastertronic, just like they started using Alkatronic, they do a lot of cross-reference tests, right? And for Mastertronic, it's pretty okay. I mean, to compare with other test kits. But with Mastertronic, we do suggest you use the same actual reagent that you put in Mastertronic. Not different batches. I mean, even if it's the same brand, but not different batches. But
Okay.
the careful way to do it is that not to get it right out of the reagent bottle, but actually pour a little bit out
Yeah.
so that you don't contaminate what's inside.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or I guess
Yeah.
if you fill it, you still have some left over in the bottle. Just use that for your spot check.
Yes, you can, but sometimes, as I said, you don't use the whole 20 mil. You have 8 mil left over. So there will become some kind of a variance
Yep.
if you do refills. So always use what's inside
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
as a cross reference.
Now, if you're not worrying about cross-referencing and you just top it off with like another batch of the same reagent, is it going to be close enough?
I think it's close enough. And just like Aquatronic, we have this function called a baseline calibration. It's basically an offset.
Yep.
So let's say if you do a calcium test by Mastertronic and it's 430, and if you do a manual test with a different kit and you say, oh, for 440, let's say, you can actually offset that to match.
Okay, nice. But now on the flip side, do you really think you're going to manually be as precise as the robot doing it?
That's a good question, and I shouldn't be answering that. It's really down to the user.
Exactly.
I will always trust my own products. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we have a good enough eye to do the colors correct. I mean, it's just the ranges are
they're subtle,
too large. Yeah.
I always have a hard time with the colors because you're like, is it closer to this shade or closer to that shade, right? So it's always that little bit of a variance. And, you know, if you're putting out of the syringe, are you like 0.1 mil extra than that is, right?
Yeah, so, and that's already a different number.
Exactly. And even, I mean, honestly, if it was 330, 340, like 10 off, I wouldn't even care because the difference is it's going to test at identical water measurements every time versus me where I'm going to be a bit of a variance. So
exactly. And I mean, with the hobby, I mean, everybody knows now it's really the consistency rather than chasing numbers.
Exactly. So all about the trends. At least that's my vision on it.
Yeah. No, very good.
Awesome. Pretty excited for it. So when are these going to be stocked? I know you said that they're starting to ship out to people. I think that's all the pre-orders. When is someone going to be able to find this in a store? Or how does someone order or get one if they want one?
Okay. Yes, we are shipping. I mean, most of the products now are being in transit. I mean, I do have some in my warehouse now, but the larger orders that are going to the UK, going to the not US, going to the Europe side, they are now in transit. They're now in transit. So it depends on the condition of the logistic. I mean, they should be there within 1 or 2 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks.
Nice. So pretty soon. I've been watching this for at least a year now, so I was excited to see it finally being released.
Yes, and for other various countries, I mean, which I'm shipping directly from my office, I mean, those will probably get the units next week, because for small orders they are mostly going by air. So yes.
Oh, that's awesome! It's exciting. So
yes, it is.
Yep. So we got the Alcatronic now, got the Dosetronic, we got the Mastertronic. What's coming next in the Tronic line?
The next, of course, there will be the Solartronic, and I think this is a very good timing for the Solartronic, because I mean, are we dedicating this to a Mastertronic, or this whole show will be anything, any Tronics?
It is now, so let's sneak it in there. This is like this is the bonus section.
Okay, good. Because I mean, as everybody know, we started off as a lighting company where we use the Focus One, and you actually invited Brad, one of your friends, to try those out, which is awesome. And right now, I think it's actually a good timing to actually bring the second generation, which is the Solartronic, because the fun part of Solartronic is not only that it does the movement, the rotation, is that it also communicates with Mastertronic,
which is really cool.
Yes, it is. It is, because in general, most people have the lighting as a kind of a set and forget thing. I mean, they buy it, they set it up, they might tune it for a week or so, and they just leave it, no matter what the parameters is, and they just leave it as it is, unless it's really bleaching corals.
Yeah.
And we all know that. I mean, lighting should be related to the nutrients level. The higher the nutrients, the more lighting you probably need. So vice versa. And with trends and with nutrient readings from Mastertronics, we can actually allow Solartronic to use that number or to use that data to actually changes to change the light intensity.
That's pretty cool. And I've heard that correlation before. I've
Mhm.
never personally adjusted it, but it is very wise to do it. So, I mean, your nutrients are lower. You can dial your lights down a bit if you get higher nutrients and you need a little more par to kind of keep everything in balance. So
Exactly.
it's a very unique, first I've ever heard of it doing it, which is a really cool way to kind of fully monitor, control your tank.
Hmm. Yeah, because I mean, originally, I mean, as I said, most people have the lightnings, let's say T5s. They
Hmm.
can't really tune it, and unless they like increase the height or lower the height of the whole fixture, right?
Yep.
So you can't really do it. I mean, again, metal halides, you can't do it. But for LEDs, I mean, people can do it, but people aren't doing it. I mean, as far as I
Hmm.
know, because
Hmm.
they only focus on the chemistry, but they don't focus much on the par output.
Yeah.
But I mean, they do focus. I mean, people do buy par meters, but they just set
Hmm.
it and just let it be. But
Yeah.
they don't correlate that with any of the chemistry of the tank.
Exactly. So that's really cool. It's the first I've ever heard of being able to automate it that way, and it's like a really new aspect of the hobby. So that's really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So I mean, that will be next, and then the other
Mhm.
one that we will be doing will be the Filtertronic. We released some concept or photos before.
Yep.
And again, we have data for the nutrients, and this is very good for the Filtertronic. I mean, it's a roller filter product,
Yep.
but then we can decide if we should actually bypass the incoming water.
Yep.
Because if the because I actually use one of the I wouldn't say the brand now. uh, I use one of the roller filters before. I mean, they
Hmm.
do an amazing job. I mean, they are really, really clean. They really clean out your tank.
Yep.
But sometimes it's just too clean. I
Hmm.
mean, based on my experience, my skimmer is not pulling anything out. I was going to say, oh, I don't need a skimmer now, but after I have this
Yeah.
roller filter. But sometimes we don't want too low nutrients, so
Hmm.
we probably need some of those gunk, some of those dirt, dirty
That's
stuff
that's
left
very cool.
in the tank, so we can actually bypass that if we see the nutrients being too low, or
Huh.
vice versa. Vice versa, if it's too dirty, we can
Hmm.
roll the fleece filter more so that it picks up
Yeah.
more of the dirty stuff.
That's very cool. This is a whole nother level to a lot of the gear that we're already using. So that's very, very cool way of doing it.
Yeah. And then after that, it will probably be more accessory stuff.
Hmm.
We even have plans to do some, I mean, automating feeding equipment.
Yeah.
I can't say
Nice.
how we're going to do it, but something like that.
I like it.
Whether we're feeding pellets for fish or feeding coral food,
Hmm.
we haven't decided yet.
Okay. So 2 years in the future from now could all be monitored. Your lighting could be raised up or down automatically based on your nutrients. Your filter roller could be letting stuff bypass or rolling more to keep your nutrients in line.
Yeah.
You could have your corals auto fed to boost nutrients if you need. There's just a lot of really cool stuff coming here. This is going to be like full automated, easy reefing in no time.
Yeah, we're creating an ecosystem for reefing for dummies.
Love it. And those high tech, geeky
Oh
slash
yeah, I
laser
mean,
reefers.
I'm not. I shouldn't be saying that. I hope I didn't upset anybody.
Oh no.
But it's really. I mean, that's the automation part that we feel that we should do. It's not just like, oh, we set a timer and put this
Mhm.
on or put this equipment off. It's more
Yeah.
than that.
Well, the way I look at it is one, if you have a busy, crazy schedule, you start slacking on testing, that's when stuff goes downhill, right? So it solves that.
Hmm.
If it's going to help people be more successful because they're not going to have corals dying or other stuff happening, right? They're more likely to be successful when all their parameters are in line. So, or if you're just a slacker like me on testing, it's going to automate it for you, right? And then it prevents stuff from going out of whack. So I mean, it's good all around, right? The more people successful in this hobby, especially with it harder to import certain things, the better,
Hmm.
because more
Exactly.
successful people, more stuff to trade around the hobby. Like I think it's good all around. So it's going to be awesome.
That's a very good point because I mean, most people, I mean, when they start a new system as a
Mm-hmm.
newbie, they probably try to save as much on equipment. Oh, I can probably manage with these filters, these skimmers, or these lightings, and just to kickstart the whole project. but at the same time, they will be upgrading down like 3 months or 2 months. And so basically they are using more money than they originally planned because they
Yeah.
can't keep up with the performance.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, they're killing fish or killing corals, which is not ideal, of course.
Yeah.
And with better equipment, I mean, we can have a better chance of keeping everything alive. And with corals, sometimes right now it's pretty expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can spend $200, $300 on a frag.
Yeah, it's crazy, but true.
Yeah,
So,
and you only need like 2 or 3 of those to buy an aquatronic.
well, and if you're successful at keeping it, it's going to grow. You have some pretty good trade value for later on. So it pays for itself long term. Like I've been on that path and I've upgraded a bazillion times and I've learned my lesson to just buy good stuff from the beginning now. But
Right.
no one does it at first. But once you realize it makes everything easier, and you're not going to lose thousands of dollars of corals because your parameters, everything's spot on. You're just gonna be more successful, enjoy it more. So that's really cool. It's gonna be good.
Yeah. And one thing I want to point out, I mean, just like you said, I mean, to keep a reef tank is not that difficult, but to keep it stable, and then after the stabilization, you can actually make it look nicer with color pop and stuff like that. So with our products, I mean, it's easier to get to that stable point so that you have everything stable, and then you just got to tweak your parameters to make it look better.
Yep. No, exactly. Next Rev 2 add-on will have to be like all the trace element automated testing.
Ooh. Thank you.
All right. That'll be the Tracetronic.
No, because actually with Mastertronic, I mean, again, based on the test kit available or what we develop, I mean, we can probably test everything that we need.
Yeah, exactly. But then I'll have to buy 2.
I have tons. Just let me know.
Oh, perfect. Baby steps. No, this is awesome. I'm very excited for it. Like I said, I've been watching this for ages, so I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. I know it's a brand new product that's finally launching. I'm stoked to finally have a chance to be able to pick one up, and I'm sure lots of other people are too.
Yep. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you
Okay.
for inviting.
Thanks so much, Eric.